Hi, and welcome to Sid Stories. Here we'll be talking about things that have caught my interest, whether it be historical, mysteries, scary stories, whatever it might be. If I found it interesting at some point, I'm going to be talking about it, or telling you the story. And I will be covering this story in more detail at some point in the future, because it's just a fascinating story. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. A true story wrapped in snow, silence and fear. Picture this, the Ural Mountains of Russia, early 1959, a frozen wilderness stretching for miles in every direction. A kind of cold that bites through layers, where breath turns to ice before it even leaves your lips. 9 young hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set off on what was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime. A ski expedition that ended in the shadow of a remote peak called Kholat Shikhl. In the language of the local Mansi people, that name means dead mountain. But the students led by Igor Dyatlov, just 23, laughed it off. They were young, skilled, fearless engineers, physicists, radio operators, people who lived for challenge and discovery. There was Zina Kolmogorova. Diligent and strong, she was once bitten by a viper on a trek, but refused any help so as not to make anybody else shoulder her burdens. Yuri Doroshenko, a brave young man, he once chased away a giant bear with nothing but a geologist's hammer. Rustin Slobodin, the athlete, an adventurous man who once trekked 300 kilometers through an area hostile to ethnic Russians. Lyudmila Debenina, the tough one, she was once shot in the leg while out hiking, yet still managed to walk back. And a few others, each bright, each with a great future ahead of them. Even Yuri Yudin, the 10th member of the group, who started the journey with them. But he fell ill early on, bad back pain, and he turned back, never knowing at the time that decision would save his life. The other 9 carried on. They trekked for days through snow and forest, laughing, taking photos, writing cheerful diary entries. Their journal spoke of friendship, jokes, even singing songs to keep spirits high. But on February 1st, the weather turned. Blizzards rolled in, fierce and blinding. The group lost their bearings, drifted off course. Instead of turning back to shelter, though, Igor Dyatlov decided they'd pitch their tent on the open slope of Kholat Shikhl. They must have thought, we've faced worse, we can handle this. So they unpacked, hammered their tent into the snow and crawled inside. They ate, laughed, probably talked about how they'd tell this story later. How they'd survived the dead mountain. And then night fell, and something went terribly wrong. Weeks later, when the search teams finally found their camp, it was like stepping into a nightmare. The tent stood half buried in snow, but not collapsed, not torn by wind. It had been sliced open from the inside. The rescuers peered in, boots, coats, food, cameras. Everything was still there, but the hikers were gone. Outside, the snow told the rest of the story. 9 sets of footprints, bare feet, socks, some wearing only one shoe, leading down toward the forest below. No sign of pursuit, no animal tracks, just those lonely footprints disappearing into the trees. They found the first bodies under a huge cedar tree. 2 of the men, Doroshenko and Krivonishenko, were barefoot, wearing nothing but underwear. Their hands were shredded and black with frostbite, as if they'd tried desperately to climb the tree. Broken branches told of their panic, up to 5 meters above the ground. Maybe they'd been trying to see something above the tent, or maybe they were trying to escape from something. A few hundred meters closer to camp, they found 3 more. Dyatlov himself, Zina and Rustam, frozen mid-stride, crawling back towards the tent as if they'd realized too late that they wouldn't survive without shelter. Their bodies showed no sign of struggle. They'd simply fallen and never risen. It took 2 months before the snow melted enough to reveal the last 4. The final group was found in a ravine, partially buried under several feet of snow. And that's when things turned from strange to horrifying. One man's skull was crushed, a piece missing. Another's chest was caved in, ribs snapped like twigs, the kind of injuries the doctors said you'd see in a car crash. Not from falling, not from the cold. And worst of all, Ludmila Dubnina. Her eyes and tongue were missing, her lips gone. There was no blood in the snow, no sign of attack, no bruises, no obvious external injuries. Just silence. Their clothes were tested, and oddly enough, some of them contained radiation. Even stranger, traces of heat damage on certain garments, as if exposed to something hot, unseen. The official investigation was a mess. They ruled out an avalanche. The slope was just too shallow. They ruled out an animal attack. No tracks, no torn tent, no injuries consistent with bite marks. They even ruled out the Mansi tribe, who were generally reasonably friendly, although they did pass through a sacred area of theirs. One report simply ended with the phrase, "The hikers died as a result of an unknown compelling force." And that's all they could say. In the years that followed, the theories multiplied. Some said the group was caught in a sudden avalanche of air, a slab of snow shifting and trapping them in panic, forcing them to cut their way out and flee into the cold. Others whispered about secret Soviet weapon tests, rockets, or mines exploding nearby, filling the air with shockwaves that broke bones and caused disorientation. Radiation, maybe, from military materials. But there were also those who looked up to the sky. That winter, other travellers and soldiers had reported seeing strange glowing orbs over the mountains. Silent, hovering, pulsing orange and white. Could the hikers have seen something they weren't meant to see? Or something not of this world? And then there's the theory of infrasound, a low-frequency vibration created by the wind passing through the mountain's shape, capable of causing panic, nausea, and hallucinations. Maybe the mountain itself, the dead mountain, had sung a note of madness that night. Maybe the wind made them believe something was coming, something that wasn't there. But if it was all just fear, if it was all just wind and cold and darkness, then why the crushed skull? Why the shattered ribs? Why the radiation, the missing tongue, the slashed tent? To this day, nobody knows. That place is still called the Dyatlov Pass, named for a man who led his friends into an unknown terror. And people still hike there today, though some say the mountain has a way of reminding you that you're not welcome. Travellers have reported flickering lights in the fog, echoes, and when the wind rises, it doesn't sound like a storm. It sounds like voices. Laughter, shouts, calls for help. The voices of 9 young explorers, frozen forever on the side of the dead mountain, still trying to tell us what really happened that night. If you like this story, please leave a comment and maybe give it a like. Until next time, this has been Sid's Stories.